I went public with my new girlfriend, a sweet, wonderful, down-to-earth girl named Jules. My Instagram post was flooded with congratulations, and I smiled as I replied to each one, until I got a private DM from her childhood friend, the unofficial king of our social scene, Spencer Hayes. Are you insane? You blocked Tori Davenport. The resentment I'd been bottling up for years finally exploded. Why not? The great Victoria Davenport has the world at her feet. I waited 8 years for her, and did she ever give me the time of day? Now I've finally moved on, and I'm still not allowed. I threw my phone aside after hitting send. The next morning, my girlfriend called me, crying. She said her family's diner, the one they'd owned and run for 20 years, was shut down by the health department last night. The reason? An anonymous tip about health code violations. My stomach dropped. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Tori. It was just a single image. A picture of a health inspection complaint receipt. On the signature line for the complainant, 2 words were scrawled in a sharp, arrogant script. Victoria Davenport. 1. When I got to Rivera's Cafe, the white city-issued notice was a hideous scar plastered across the glass door. The metal security gate was pulled halfway down, and not a single sliver of light escaped from inside. Julia's parents, both in their late 50s, just sat there on a pair of small, worn-out stools by the entrance. Mrs. Rivera was silently wiping away tears while her husband chain-smoked, a small mountain of cigarette butts already at his feet. The air smelled of tar and hopelessness. 20 years we've been here, Mr. Rivera said, his voice raspy and broken. Everyone in this neighborhood knows our food, knows how clean we keep this place. How could this happen? Jules stood beside them, her eyes as red as a rabbit's, but she was holding back her tears. When she saw me, her lips trembled. She tried to force a smile, but it looked more painful than a grimace. Ethan, you're here. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. A tidal wave of guilt washed over me. I knew this was all because of me. I walked over to Jules and pulled her into a hug, rubbing her back. I'll handle this. I stepped away and pulled out my phone, dialing the number I thought I'd never call again. It rang for a long time before she picked up. Tori's voice, cool and laced with a sleepy laziness, came through the line as if she'd just woken up. Ethan, did hell freeze over? I never thought you'd call me first. I clamped down on my anger and got straight to the point. The diner. Was that you? A soft laugh on the other end, full of amusement and entitlement. Of course, she said. Why else would you be calling me right now? My temper flared. Tori, what the hell do you want? It's simple, she said. Her voice so calm it was infuriating. Break up with the diner girl. Come back to where you belong. You just have to say the word, and the restaurant can reopen tomorrow. I guarantee it. I laughed, a bitter, incredulous sound at her casual, cruel arrogance. You still think you're the center of the universe, don't you? Tori, I'm not your lapdog anymore. Beep. I hung up, refusing to hear another word. My phone screen was still lit up, the image of that complaint form burning my eyes. Without hesitating, I forwarded the picture to Spencer Hayes, the so-called prince of our circle and Tori's best friend. I added a message. Get your girl on a leash. She's way out of line. After that, I took a deep breath and dragged every one of Tori's contacts, her phone number, her Instagram, her WhatsApp, into my block list. Then I walked back to Jules and took her cold hand in mine. She was trembling slightly. I looked her in the eyes and said, one word at a time, don't be scared. I've got this. This is about me. I'll fix it. My voice wasn't loud, but every word carried a weight of absolute certainty. Jules looked at me, and the tears she'd been holding back finally spilled over. But she didn't ask who she was. She just nodded hard. 2. I first convinced Jules's parents to go home. The 2 of them looked like they had aged a decade overnight, their steps heavy and slow. I promised them that within 3 days, the cafe would be back to normal, and I would cover every penny of their losses. Mr. Rivera looked at me, his lips moving as if to say something, but in the end, he just sighed heavily and clapped me on the shoulder. Ethan, I trust you. It was late, so I didn't take Jules home. I brought her back to my studio apartment in Cambridge. It was a small place, but I kept it spotless. She was quiet the whole ride, just resting her head on my shoulder. I knew what she was thinking. Back at my place, I poured her a glass of hot tea. She cupped the mug in her hands, her mood still heavy. I'm so sorry, Ethan, she whispered. This is all my fault. My parents kept it. It's their whole life. I came up behind her and wrapped my arms around her, resting my chin on the top of her head. Don't be ridiculous, I said. I'm the one who should be sorry. She turned around in my arms and looked up, her eyes filled with a careful, probing curiosity. Is she someone really important to you? I told her the truth. She was. I felt her body tense up in an instant. I cupped her face in my hands, making her look at me. But that's in the past. The very, very distant past. The warm light of the apartment softened the lines of her face, but also highlighted the anxiety in her eyes. Maybe we should just call it quits, she said softly. I don't want you to have to go through this. I don't want to be the reason that you. I didn't let her finish. I silenced her with a deep kiss, pouring all of my apology, my heartache, and my unwavering resolve into it. After a long moment, I pulled away, resting my forehead against hers, our breath mingling. Jules, I said, gazing in her eyes, my voice perfectly clear. You are not a problem. You are my choice. You are my future. You're the first real thing I've managed to hold on to. I swept her up into my arms and carried her toward the bedroom. She let out a small gasp and instinctively wrapped her arms around my neck. I laid her gently on the bed and leaned over her. I waited 8 years, I told her. I filled up an ocean of disappointment before I finally turned around and walked away. I'm not going back. Not one single step. I stroked her back, feeling her body tremble, using all my patience and tenderness to soothe her fear. In that intimate moment, I showed her that love was something real and tangible, not a distant, unattainable fantasy. Jules's tears started falling again, but this time they were tears of relief. She held on me tightly, as if she wanted to merge herself into my very bones. Ethan, she whispered, I believe you. That night, there were no more barriers between us, only the warmth of being held. For the first time, I understood how grounding it felt to be completely trusted and relied upon by someone. 3. Spencer's call came first thing the next morning. His voice was sharp, accusatory. Ethan, what the hell? You blocked Tori. I was in the kitchen making breakfast for Jules. My voice was calm. I did. Are you out of your goddamn mind? Do you have any idea? I cut him off. I know she got my girlfriend's family diner shut down. Silence on Spencer's end. After a few seconds, he sighed, his tone softening. Look, man, what Tori did was wrong. I apologize on her behalf. Just meet me, let's talk this out, fix this. Tori, she's just. I don't want to see her, I said flatly. You come alone, or there's nothing to talk about. Another pause from Spencer. Finally, he caved. Fine. Just me. The usual spot, 7 o'clock. The usual spot was an upscale restaurant in Back Bay, a place where Tori and her trust fund friends used to hang out. I knew I was walking into an ambush, but I had to go. That evening, after making sure Jules was settled, I went alone. I pushed open the restaurant's heavy oak door and immediately saw Spencer at a table by the window. And next to him, dressed to the nines with flawless makeup, sat Tori. She was wearing a classic Chanel-style dress I'd never seen before, her expression as proud and aloof as ever, like an elegant, unapproachable swan. She didn't even bother to look up when I arrived, just lazily stirred the cappuccino in front of her. Spencer saw the look on my face and shot up from his chair, his expression awkward. Ethan, let me explain. Tori insisted on coming. I couldn't. Tori cut him off. She pulled a check from her Hermes bag and slid it across the table toward me. The gesture was light, but it carried the unmistakable weight of condescension. 50,000, she said, finally lifting her eyes to meet mine. Her gaze was filled with that familiar, imperious judgment. That should be enough for your little girlfriend's family to open a much nicer place. Ethan, stop this nonsense. Come back. Her tone was that of a master reprimanding a disobedient pet. I stared at the check, the number $50,000 stark and insulting. I smiled, a cold, mocking smile. Tori, I said, do you really think everything in this world can be bought with money? Including me? I picked up the check, dangled it in the air in front of her. Then, slowly, deliberately, I ripped it into tiny pieces. The white scraps fluttered down onto the table like a pale, pathetic snowfall. The color drained from Tori's face. She stared at me in disbelief, as if I were some kind of monster. For the first time, her beautiful eyes showed shock and a flicker of Hurt. You. I stood up, looking down at her. I'll say this one last time. We are over. Don't ever bother me or my girlfriend again. Or next time, it'll be more than check I tear up. Just then, a familiar figure appeared at the restaurant's entrance. It was Jules. She'd been worried about me and had come to bring me a jacket, only to walk in on this scene. She stood there, frozen and uncertain. Without a moment's hesitation, I strode over to her and took her cool hand in mine. Then, right in front of Tori and Spencer, I leaned down and pressed a soft, deliberate kiss to her forehead. Let's go home. I led Jules out of the restaurant without a single look back, leaving Tori behind with her pride, which I had just personally crushed into dust. 4. Things didn't end with my show of force. They got worse. A few days later, Jules and I were walking hand in hand down a tree-lined path on the Northwood University campus. The sun was warm, and we had just picked out a pair of simple, matching silver rings. They weren't fancy, but wearing them felt right, a quiet promise. We were laughing, trying to decide where to go for dinner, when a figure suddenly blocked our path. Tori. She stood there like a ghost, and I had no idea how long she'd been waiting. She wore no makeup. Her face was pale, her hair a mess. She was a world away from the eternally perfect campus queen I remembered. Her eyes, like poison-tipped nails, were fixed on our intertwined hands, on the glint of the new rings. Her own eyes were bloodshot, and her body trembled with a rage and jealousy she couldn't contain. Ethan. Her voice trembled, too, laced with a fractured, desperate edge. 8 years. You throw away 8 years of devotion just like that? For her. A nobody with nothing? She pointed at Jules, her expression dripping with contempt. Jules's face went pale. She started to say something, but I squeezed her hand, signaling her to stay quiet. I stepped in front of Jules, shielding her, and faced Tori's meltdown head-on. Yes, I said, my voice cold and empty. Because you weren't worth it. Those 4 words were like a dagger, piercing through the last of Tori's composure. My indifference pushed her over the edge. Not worth it. She shrieked, lunging forward to grab the front of my t-shirt. She moved so fast that I instinctively flinched back. Her hand missed me and instead knocked over the bubble tea Jules was holding. The milky brown liquid splashed all over Jules. The cold tea streamed down the collar of her shirt, sticky and awful. I immediately pulled Jules behind me, forgetting about Tori completely as I frantically dug tissues out of my pocket to help her clean up. Are you okay? Did it burn you? It's okay, it was iced, Jules said, shaking her head, her face pale. Seeing her standing there, so miserable, a surge of protective anger and raw heartache for her washed over me, drowning out everything else. I didn't even look at Tori again. My patience, already worn thin, had completely evaporated the moment that drink was spilled. I spoke coldly to Tori, who was still standing there, stunned. You want to know why? I said, fine, I'll tell you why. Do you remember the night of your birthday, junior year? Around 11 o'clock, behind the library, in that black Porsche. What were you and that guy doing? My voice was low, but every word landed like a sledgehammer on Tori's heart. Flashback, it was Tori's birthday. I'd used 6 months of savings from my part-time job to buy her a necklace she'd mentioned once, in passing. I stood outside her dorm, holding that small gift box from sunset until the campus fell silent. All I wanted was to wish her a happy birthday in person. Just before midnight, I finally saw her. She stepped out a luxury car I didn't recognize. The man driving got out, too, and grabbed her hand, not letting go. Under the lamplight, I could see her cheeks were flushed. They looked intimate. It was hard to tell if they were arguing or flirting. In that instant, I felt like the world's biggest fool. The gift box in my hand suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My entire, pathetic devotion had become a punchline. Hearing my words, Tori looked as if she'd been struck by lightning. The blood drained from her face. Her lips trembled, but no sound came out. She just stared at me, her eyes filled with shock, panic, and a dawning despair. I was done with her. I took Jules's hand and turned to leave. As I passed Tori, I leaned in and said in a voice only the 3 of us could hear, "That was the moment I wrote you off for good, Tori. My 8 years of devotion died that night." 5. The atmosphere back in my apartment was heavy. Jules didn't say a word. She took off her sticky jacket, got a damp towel, and silently started dabbing at the spots where the tea had splashed on my shirt. Under the lamp, her profile was serene, her long lashes casting a small shadow on her cheek. She didn't ask a single question. Not about my history with Tori, not about the man in the Porsche, not about what those 8 years have been like for me. Watching her quiet, considerate care, a warmth spread through my chest, and all my anger and frustration began to dissolve. I reached out and stopped her hand. It was gentle and warm. "Jules." She looked up and gave me a small smile. "It's clean now. I took the initiative. Do you want to know? About me and her. I'll tell you everything." Jules looked at me, hesitated for a second, then nodded softly. That night, I opened up the secret I had carried for 8 years and laid it all bare for her. From the freshman orientation ceremony in high school, when I first saw Tori give the welcome speech in a white dress, like a beam of light cutting through my gray teenage world, to college, where I'd studied like a maniac just to get into the same university as her. I had silently memorized all her preferences, her favorite brand of sparkling water, her hatred of cilantro, the fact that she always sat at the same window seat in the library on Wednesday afternoons. I would show up half an hour early just to claim the seat across from her, pretending to read while my entire peripheral vision was filled with her. I did so many stupid things for her. I waited in line all night to buy her tickets to a sold-out concert, then had them delivered to her dorm anonymously. When she was sick, I drove all over Boston to get her soup from the one place she liked. When a guy was hitting on her and she looked uncomfortable, I'd accidentally walk by and create a diversion. I was the loyal knight guarding my princess, but the princess never even knew I existed. I thought I could keep that up forever, until we graduated, until she found her prince. But that night, junior year, that black Porsche, it shattered every one of my illusions. Telling the story felt like tearing open an old wound, exposing everything I'd kept hidden. It hurt, but having Jules there, listening quietly, I felt a sense of healing I'd never experienced before. When I finished, I let out a long breath. The massive weight I'd carried on my chest for years had finally been lifted. I thought Jules would call me a fool, or maybe get jealous. She didn't. When I was done, her eyes were filled with tears. She just wrapped her arms around me and held me tight. She buried her face in my chest, her voice muffled. "Ethan, you have me now. I won't make you wait. Not for a single step. You take one step forward, and I'll run the other 99 to you." Her words were like a warm current, washing away the last of my defenses. I had always thought I was strong enough to handle all the hurt and humiliation on my own. It was only in this moment that I realized how much I needed this, to be cared for. I hugged her back fiercely, whispering in her ear, "Thank you, Jules. Thank you for coming into my life." I made a silent vow to myself. I had to resolve the situation with the diner, and quickly. I couldn't let her or her family suffer anymore because of my past. This wasn't about getting even anymore. This was about protecting my present and my future. 6. Tori's methods were childish and cruel, but they were effective. Her family had the kind of power a regular person like me couldn't fight directly. A head-on collision would only end in mutual destruction and drag Jules's family down with me. I had to find another way. I thought a guy I knew from college, Leo Vance. He was a couple of years ahead of me and had landed a job at a major news outlet after graduation. He was an investigative journalist now. We were on good terms. I gave Leo a call. "Hey, man, I need a favor." I laid out the whole story for him. How Tori had shut down the diner, how she tried to humiliate me with a check at the restaurant. I sent him a package with everything. The screenshot of the complaint receipt Tori had texted me, and the voice memo I'd secretly recorded during that disastrous dinner. The one with her 50,000 to buy you off speech. Leo was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then he swore, "Jesus Christ, are entitled rich girls like that still a thing?" "Ethan, don't worry. I've got your back on this one. I had only one condition. Leo, no matter what, you have to protect my girlfriend and her family's privacy. I don't want their names or faces anywhere near this. I'm not looking for revenge, just a solution. Frame it as an out-of-control heiress abusing her power story." Leo agreed instantly. "Got it. Leave it to me." He worked faster than I could have imagined. The very next afternoon, an article titled "Heiress's Love Gets Heavy." Local diner shut down after owner's daughter dates her backup plan. went viral on Boston Insider, a local news site with a huge readership. The piece was written with dramatic flair. It anonymized everyone's names, Mr. Cole, Ms. Rivera, and Ms. Davenport, but the details were precise. The recording was the centerpiece. Tori's arrogant, condescending line, $50,000, enough for your little girlfriend's family to open a much nicer place, was shared and commented on thousands of times. Holy crap, is this real life or a bad soap opera? Money really can buy anything, huh? I feel so bad for that little diner. Who is this mess? Davenport? Someone find her. That voice on the recording sounds familiar. Isn't that the Davenport Corp heiress? The story exploded. Even without names, Tori's social circle was small. It didn't take long for people to connect the dots. The scandal quickly reached her father, the chairman of Davenport Corp. I heard that when he saw the post and heard the recording, he was so furious he smashed an antique vase. For a family like theirs, money was never the issue. Reputation and public image were everything. A scandal about them bullying ordinary people could do immeasurable damage to their company's stock and brand. The Davenports moved immediately to contain the fallout. The morning after the article was published, 2 officials from the Department of Health showed up at the diner in person to apologize. They came bearing gift baskets and a humble attitude, claiming it was all a misunderstanding caused by a clerical error on their end. The notice was torn from the door on the spot. The diner was unsealed. Not only that, but the Davenport family's chief of staff came by personally to deliver a substantial check for emotional distress and lost business revenue. I told Jules's parents to accept it. They deserved it. The day the diner reopened, the entire neighborhood came out to support them. It was busier than ever. Looking at the bustling room, Mr. and Mrs. Rivera finally had real smiles on their faces again. That evening, I got a text from Spencer. Tori's on lockdown. Dad took her phone and froze her credit cards. They're probably sending her abroad. Ethan, you won this round. I stared at the screen, feeling no desire to reply. I walked into the kitchen where Jules was helping out and wrapped my arms around her from behind. She smelled faintly of cooking oil and spices, a scent that felt more comforting than anything in the world. When you're done, let's go home, I said. Watching her and her family laughing and working together again, I felt a deep sense of peace. This was the life I wanted. Real, warm, and full of everyday chaos. 7. For the next month, it was as if Tori Davenport had vanished from the face of the earth. My life with Jules returned to a calm, sweet rhythm. Without any external drama, our relationship deepened quickly. I'd pick her up from the diner every evening, and we'd cook dinner together in my small kitchen. Her family's business was booming, and the smile rarely left her face. We were like any other couple. We saw movies on weekends, took walks in the park, argued over what to eat for dinner, and held each other late at night, whispering nonsense. I even started secretly planning how I was going to propose. I wanted to give her a home, a real home that belonged to us. I truly believed the ugly past was finally behind me. Until that night, my phone started vibrating violently on the nightstand, a frantic, incessant buzzing. The name flashing on the screen was Spencer. I frowned, glanced at Jules sleeping peacefully beside me, and slipped out onto the balcony to answer. Hello. The second I picked up, Spencer's voice, raw and broken, ripped through the phone. Ethan, are you happy now, you bastard? He was sobbing, roaring like a wounded animal. My stomach clenched with a terrible premonition. What are you talking about? I demanded. It's Tori. She's in the ICU. Spencer screamed. She collapsed. A bleeding ulcer. The doctors just said it's critical. My mind went completely blank. Critical. The word hammered against my skull. She was on a hunger strike, locked herself in her room. Her depression relapsed. Spencer's voice was seething with hatred and blame. She just kept saying her name. She was whispering her name right before she passed out. Ethan, this is on you. You did this to her. You're a monster. If anything happens to her, I swear to God I will never forgive you. The line went dead. I stood on the cold, dark balcony, phone in hand, and didn't move for a long time. The night wind felt sharp against my skin. My mind was a chaotic mess of shock, disbelief, and irritation at being dragged back into this. But there was no pity. The glass door separated 2 worlds. Inside was my warmth, my future. Outside, The ghosts of the past refused to stay buried. A pair of soft arms wrapped around my waist from behind. It was Jules. She must have woken up. She was wearing one of my sweatshirts, her hair messy from sleep. She pressed her cheek against my back. "I heard everything," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Do you want to go see her?" she asked. "You should go. Don't leave things unsaid." I turned around and looked into her clear, trusting eyes. The last of my frustration melted away. I pulled her into a tight embrace. She was right. I had to go, not for Tori, but to finally, unequivocally, close the book on my past. 8. Jules and I went to the hospital together. The sharp, sterile smell of antiseptic filled the hallway. The red light above the ICU was still on. Spencer was slumped on a bench, looking like a statue. His hair was a wreck, and his eyes were webbed with red. When he saw me, he shot to his feet, his fists clenched as if he was about to charge. But then he saw Jules standing beside me, and he froze. He opened his mouth to say something, but I silenced him with a cold glare. "How is she?" I asked. Spencer sagged back onto the bench, running his hands through his hair. Still in surgery, he croaked. We waited in dead silence for what felt like an eternity. Finally, the ICU light switched from red to green. A surgeon emerged, pulling off his mask, his face etched with fatigue. "We got her stabilized. She's out of immediate danger for now." A collective sigh of relief went through the small group. Tori was moved to a private VIP room. Through the glass window, I saw her on the bed. She was hooked up to a dozen machines, her face utterly devoid of color, her lips cracked and peeling. She had lost so much weight, she was almost unrecognizable. She looked like a flower that had been savaged by a storm, all of her former pride and vibrance gone. When she woke up, the first thing she asked for was to see me. Alone. Jules stopped at the door and nodded at me. "Go on. Say what you need to say. I'll be right here waiting for you." I pushed the door open and went in. The room was quiet except for the soft, rhythmic beeping of the monitors. Tori's eyes were open, staring blankly at the ceiling. When she heard my footsteps, her gaze slowly shifted to me. Tears began to slide silently from the corners of her eyes. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice as faint as a wisp of smoke. "I am sorry." It was the first time I had ever heard those words from her. I stood by her bed, silent, waiting for her to continue. She cried for a long time before she managed to speak again, the words coming out in broken pieces, revealing a truth she had buried for years. It wasn't that I didn't like you," she stammered. "It's because I liked you too much. I noticed you back in high school. You were always the quiet one in the corner, but you were at the top of the class in every exam. And you were amazing on the basketball court. This was a twist I had never, ever seen coming. You probably know a little about my family. My parents. All they care about are business alliances, about how I can benefit the family name. From the time I was a little girl, they told me I couldn't have any weaknesses. I wasn't allowed to fall for anyone ordinary. I was scared," she confessed, tears streaming down her face. "I was terrified that if they found out I liked you, they would hurt you. So I pretended not to care. I acted like I was above it all. I thought if I kept my distance, I could protect you." Finally, she got to that rainy night. Junior year, my birthday. The guy in the Porsche, he's the son of one of my father's business partners. My dad wanted to arrange a marriage. He cornered me outside the library, basically forced me into his car to try and make things official. I kept telling him no, we were fighting. My face was red with anger, not anything else. I finally slapped him and got out of the car. What you saw as intimate was actually a brutal fight. The truth was out. My 8-year obsession, the source of all my pain, the very reason I had finally given up. It was all based on a massive, absurd misunderstanding. I was silent for a long time, a storm of emotions churning inside me. There was anger at being so foolish, a sense of loss for my wasted youth, but mostly a strange, hollow peace. She looked at me, her tears flowing faster. "I thought you'd understand. I thought you would wait for me, no matter what. Wait until I was strong enough to fight my family, until I could walk up to you without hiding. But then, you didn't wait. You found someone else." I finally spoke. My voice is still and flat as a frozen lake. "Tori, it's too late. 8 years of time, of countless nights spent in agony and self-doubt, couldn't be erased by a single belated explanation. 9. I felt unsteady on my feet when I walked out of her room. Tori's words replayed in my head over and over. The truth was a wrecking ball that had just demolished the entire structure of my past. The person I had resented didn't exist. The betrayal I had mourned was a phantom. What I thought was a one-sided, pathetic crush was apparently a love story I'd never been allowed to read. It was all so ridiculous. Jules came toward me. Seeing the shattered look on my face, she didn't ask a single question. She just reached out and steadied my arm. Her hand was firm and warm. At the end of the hospital corridor, I leaned against the cold wall just to stay upright. I looked at Jules, at her worried eyes, and chose the cruelest form of honesty. "I'm wavering," I said. As the words left my mouth, I felt her body go rigid. The color drained from her face. I didn't give her false hope. I explained, "It's not because I'm still in love with her. It's my entire past, my whole youth. It feels like a complete joke. I'm a mess right now." I looked into her eyes, my own voice filled with the confusion and pain I hadn't realized was there. "I need some time. I need to be alone to figure this all out." The fluorescent lights of the hallway were stark and unforgiving, making both our faces look pale and unreal. Jules's eyes welled up. I could see the glint of tears, but she blinked them back fiercely. She let go of my arm and took a small step back. The tiny movement was a physical blow to my heart, but she still nodded. "Okay," she said, her voice trembling almost imperceptibly. "Ethan, I'll wait for you. But you need to be sure about what you really want. Is it a second chance at the past you lost? Or is it a future you can actually hold in your hands?" She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse me of being weak. She just gave me respect and space. Her understanding and trust, paradoxically, were what snapped my own heart into focus. I left the hospital alone and walked aimlessly through the empty city streets for hours. And then, though tears were once again silently tracking down her cheeks, a small smile began to form on her lips. It was a smile of genuine, final release. With her hand that was still hooked up to an 4, she shakily reached for her own phone and turned it on. She found the number she knew by heart, the one that had blocked her, and sent one last text from a new number. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was an unknown number, but I knew who it was. "Ethan, I wish you all the happiness in the world, and I wish myself the strength to finally let go." Reading the message, I felt nothing but a quiet finality. A long, tangled, 8-year story had finally reached its end. I replied with a single word. "Okay." Then I deleted the message and blocked the new number. Everything and anything related to Tori Davenport was now, truly, gone from my world. I looked up and saw Jules hugging her parents. All 3 of them had tears of joy on their faces. I walked over and wrapped my arms around all of them. From now on, they were my family too. 12. A year later, Jules and I got married on a beach in Cape Cod. We didn't invite a lot of people, just our closest family and friends. Sun, sand, waves, and the person I loved. Everything was perfect. We had used the compensation money from the Davenports, along with our own savings, to expand and renovate Jules's place. It was now a famous, Instagram-worthy spot, and business was better than ever. I had quit my old job to run our small business with Jules. I handled the finances and management. She was the heart of the kitchen, in charge of the food. Life was busy, but more fulfilling than I could have imagined. Spencer came to the wedding. He looked more mature and relaxed than he had a year ago. He handed me a gift and smiled. "Ethan, congratulations." We clinked glasses. He told me Tori's family had sent her to Paris to study art. She was painting. He just got a picture from her a few days ago of her sketching by the Seine, smiling, looking genuinely happy. It seemed she had finally found something she was passionate about, something that was truly her own. "She said a thank you," Spencer said as he left. I nodded at him. All the old drama had long since faded away. The ceremony began. As we exchanged rings, I looked at Jules in her white wedding dress, as beautiful as any fairy tale princess. I leaned in and whispered in her ear, "Thank you for pulling me out of the 8-year nightmare I was stuck in." Jules smiled, her eyes sparkling like they held all the stars in the sky. She stood on her toes and whispered back, "That's because your world was always meant to have sunshine in it." I kissed my bride. The ocean breeze blew past us, carrying a warm, salty taste of a new beginning. I was no longer the boy chasing a distant, cold light, because I was finally holding my own sun. I once thought love was about gazing at the stars, about reaching for that untouchable moon in the sky. I finally understood. Real love is holding the warm hand beside you. It's cherishing the fire and smoke of every ordinary day. It's lighting a lamp of your own, and then, with the person you love, lighting up the entire world.